This is Row Talk.
Thank you again, Shahrzad, for chatting.
No
Um,
problem.
so, how how's your life during COVID?
Ooh, hard hitting question right off the bat. It's okay. um, I mean, there's certainly some good aspects and some not so good aspects. I think everybody feels a little bit cooped up at this point. It's been over a year. So, I mean, I would really like to be able to go out for dinner and have a nice glass of wine and not worry about masks and viruses and all that stuff. But I think after it's all said and done, I've been fairly fortunate during COVID. I've been able to work from home just fine. And I'm kind of an introvert anyway. So I don't usually do a lot of things with people. So I have a lot of hobbies that are like solo hobbies that have been keeping me busy. But even as an introvert, um, I'm starting to feel a little bit like I need some amount of, you know, human interaction that isn't just over the internet.
Well, I can tell you've been in a lot of Zoom calls because you're looking right at the camera, and
Yeah.
I don't even bother with that. But
Yeah.
you're not the first to do that. So, yeah, it's Zoom fatigue. It's apparently real. I'm not working, so I don't know directly, but all my friends who are working say it's crazy. Sometimes they do 8 hours of work calls a day, like a whole day of just Zoom calls.
Yeah. That's crazy. I've only had a handful of days where I've had like full day back to back calls. And on those days, like they are exhausting. It is so mentally draining to like
Um,
sit in front of a screen and just like talk about work or like what you're supposed to do and checklists and all this stuff. But my work's pretty good in that there's only a handful of days that are like that. So I do get to block enough time during the day to like actually get stuff done. And working from home is good because I mean, I live at home with my mom right now and she works from home too. So at lunchtime, we actually like go for a walk at lunch.
mm,
And I mean, going for a walk at lunch is something I never used to do before when I was at the office. I was very much like just
mhm.
sit at my desk and work. And I find that going for a walk at lunch just breaks up the day so nicely. And
Yeah.
that helps. So I've been able to consistently do that. People don't generally book meetings over lunchtime, so I can get outside. Even in the wintertime, even if it's raining, I still get out and it's really great.
Yeah, I agree that going out is a great way to split up your day. Lunchtime is a good time. I've done that at past jobs. Some companies they only give you half an hour, so I can't really do that. But if I can get away with, starting a half an hour early or leaving a half an hour late, they're usually okay to give you an hour chunk of time.
Yeah,
So I've done the walks, usually a half an hour walk, and then you eat for half an hour. But I'm eager to try running when I get back to working. Try
yeah,
to go for a half an hour run or even a 10-minute jog. But that depends on if there's a shower available because, you don't
that's
want
the
to
thing.
stink.
Yeah, I always back when I used to run more, I don't really run that much anymore, but I really wanted to be able to go for a run at lunch, but the problem is that like I certainly would have to take a shower. I could not go for a run at lunch and then just sit at my desk. Some people could, but um yeah, I think logistically that just never could work for me unless there was like facilities at work that could accommodate that. I feel like some companies are pretty good about that. Like I know I think maybe at London Life they even have like a gym in their building or something, or Canada Life now I should say. Um but yeah, that's a luxury.
Yeah, so you've done a half marathon before, right?
Oh yeah, a long time ago though. I think when I was in third year university, I actually did two half marathons spaced a couple months apart. And then I don't know what happened. I basically just like stopped running. So I did it and then I was like, I've done this. And then I started lifting
Yeah.
weights more.
Yeah, I remember that phase. Are you still lifting?
Yeah, I actually just in February I bought a squat rack. And so now my basement is my home gym. So I have a squat rack, an Olympic barbell, a bunch of plate weights, and I feel like I'm set. I never need to have a gym membership ever for the rest of my life.
Wow. Because you can use a squat rack for a bunch of stuff. Like, uh, do you even have like
Yep.
the pull-up attachment?
I don't because our basement ceiling is really low, so there's actually not enough room to be able to like have that attachment. So what I did was I bought a squat rack that is just tall enough for me, but what I can do is put the barbell on like the highest rung, and then I use the barbell as like um, a
As a
thing to
bar.
do
Yeah.
pull-ups and chin-ups on. So I've improvised a little bit and it works.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. My pull-up bar is the goalpost at the soccer field nearby.
Hey, that works.
So the important thing to remember is when you do the pull-ups, this goalpost is rusted. So I wear some gardening gloves and go up there and do it. So that
Yeah.
works too. So
I feel like that would be hard too because the goalposts are pretty thick. Like I feel like I wouldn't be able to have like a really good grip. So that's probably really good for your grip strength.
well, so the if you're looking at the goalpost on the soccer field, the border is very thick. It's a wide diameter, but the supporting bars that go behind the goalposts and into the grass, they're a lot thinner. So I do the pull-ups on the side, and it's I mean, I'm trying to think of basically it's not too bad. It's not like a pull-up bar at the gym, but it's not impossible that you have to, put your whole elbow into it or something crazy like that.
Right.
So yeah, I've been staying fit that way and doing these monthly challenges. So this month, I made my own fitness circuit of around 10 exercises. So my goal is to do one set every day minimum. I haven't achieved that so far, but I'm still trying to push through and get as many days as possible. So I find that helps when you have something to do every day, like going for a walk or doing a circuit.
Yeah.
If you have something to check off on a list, you it's harder to get bored or feel bad or feel sad.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I try to I like the idea of like a challenge and doing something every day too. I try to like mix it up because I'm somebody that gets bored really quickly. So if I'm just doing weights every day, like I wouldn't be able to because I'd get too tired, but that would be boring pretty quickly. And so I try to mix it up. I've been doing a lot of like follow along YouTube videos with Tabata exercises that really like get your heart rate up. Um, then there's weights, there's like going for walks outside. And I try like to have like a cycle that I rotate through because yeah, I do yoga videos. Just I kind of wake up and it's like, what do I feel like doing today? And I'll just do that because I found that like putting the pressure of like being like, all right, on Wednesday, I'm going.
Okay, I think we're back.
Ah, did I cut out?
Yeah, the last thing I heard was it was just you talking, and then it just slowed down like like going for a walk was the last thing I heard.
Oh, that's too funny. Basically, all I was saying was that I try to change it up because if I do the same thing, I get bored really quickly. So I kind of cycle through different exercises.
Well, you gave me a great idea for another challenge, which is in a month, every day, do a different at home YouTube workout between 5 and 10 minutes. think
You should totally do that. That's a great idea. There are so many out there to choose from.
yeah, and you can vary it too, if you have a tough day and the next day your body's too stiff or whatever, just find a chill yoga stretch workout
Yep.
that's really chill. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. No, I think that's a great idea. Just changes things up, and you can get a pretty good workout in 10 minutes if you find like
Yeah.
a well organized Tabata video. Like they leave me breathless sometimes. Like I'm just sweating on the floor, don't know what I've just done. I'm happy it's over. It was only like 8.5 minutes.
So what is Tabata?
Tabata is like, well, don't quote me on this because I don't know the actual definition, but it's essentially a kind of interval training where you don't go for too long, but you might even have like 4 different exercises that you cycle through, and you're just like going as hard as you can for something like 30 seconds, and then you rest for 20 seconds, and
Mhm.
you do that in an interval type format, and it only lasts. It could go up to like 15 or 20 minutes, but you can get a pretty good workout in 10.
Hmm.
They're really effective.
That's a good idea. My circuit I'm doing, it takes me around 6 to 6.5 minutes, but I don't take a break. It's just one exercise to the next. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's one way to do it. Hmm.
Yeah, it really gets the heart rate up because the idea is that you go as hard as possible for the 30 seconds that you're on. And so
Yeah.
really quickly, if your cardio is pretty bad like mine, you're going to be out of breath and really tired.
Yeah, I think it's good because, I mean, yeah, you don't really want to go all out for longer than 30 seconds,
Yeah,
unless you're a pro athlete. Even then, I'm sure it's exhausting. So
yeah, exactly.
yeah, I'll check it out. Um, yeah, but yeah, I really do want to. I miss going to the mall. I never thought I would say that in my life.
Yeah, I agree. I never really liked the mall in the first place, but I was actually thinking the other day, like, there's just something about walking around, going into a store, like no goal. Like right now, when we go out, it's like you have to have a goal. Like there's something in mind that you need to buy, you're going to go get it, and then you're going to come out, and that's all you're going to do. But being able to just wander and like walk into a
Mhm.
store and like browse, I really like doing that at Lush. Walk in, smell different soaps and like shampoos. Maybe I don't even buy anything, but I just like go in to see what's up and then come out.
Man, that Lush smell, it's like it's too much for me. Like you just walk by the store and you just keep walking.
It is a lot. My mom has like really strong smell sensitivity, and she can't even walk by the store. So I have to be very careful if I'm around and using blush products. I love it though.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, it's been over a year.
Yeah,
I think that sums it up.
certainly.
So I saw you've tried cryotherapy too.
So cryotherapy, don't only done it once, and I was in Australia. I
Mm,
actually that's like a whole other story. I worked in Australia for a summer through my work, and I was in Melbourne. And it's so funny. I such a random series of events, but if you remember Shelby Thompson from Central as well, she was in my year. You might not have known
yes, I
her.
remember,
But
I
anyway,
think.
okay. So Shelby Thompson was also in Melbourne at the same time that I was, and we hadn't coordinated it or anything, but we decided to meet up. And one of the things that we did was we went to go try cryotherapy. So and it was super fun and a great experience. But I just feel like now that I'm saying it, it's just so random. I was in Melbourne, so was Shelby. We went and did cryotherapy.
But how was so this is my understanding. You go into a really cold room for 2 or 3 minutes and you stay there as long as you can with a max of 2 or 3 minutes. and you're supposed to feel really good after.
That basically sums it up. It was so cold. I thought I wasn't gonna make it. I can't remember how long it was. I think it was maybe 2.5 minutes or something. They play you get to pick a song out of a list, and you can listen to the song while you're in there to try and like help you get through it. I don't remember what song I picked, but I remember I was thinking, damn, am I gonna like make it through this? And then it was over before I knew it. And I actually felt really good afterwards. Like you kind of feel like renewed and refreshed. And it was really good for me because I had just come off like a really like long, tough work week. So I was feeling very drained. And I felt like doing that made me feel more like revitalized, I guess. It was fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear professional athletes do that a lot, and it helps with recovery after performing.
Yep.
So I guess your body is really, really hot, so it cools you down instantly, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know
Yeah, I
what
don't know.
temperature. I don't know what temperature it gets down to, but it was pretty cold. I don't remember. This was like 2.5 years ago, so quite some time.
And yeah, you've done a bunch of traveling too. You mentioned you were in Australia
Hmm.
working, and okay, so I've never thought someone who likes to travel is also an introvert. So how does that work?
So this is how it works. I I like to travel, and I'm really good at doing things by myself.
Okay. Okay.
So a lot of the activities that bring me joy and happiness are things that don't necessarily involve other people, as bad as that sounds. So, one of the best trips I ever took was I signed up to do this hiking expedition in the Grand Canyon.
Mhm.
And I didn't know anybody on the trip. I just kind of signed up, and it's through a company that um, they just have a tour guide, and they give you the camping equipment, and they just take you into the Grand Canyon. And so I ended up just being with like three strangers, all of them who were also like solo kind of traveler types. And it was so awesome because we basically just hiked for 7 days. And I mean, you can only talk so much for 7 full days with a bunch of strangers. So, I mean, it was great to get to know everybody, but also like I love hiking, and hiking's kind of like a solo activity, even though you're doing it with other people. I don't know. I just feel very comfortable if I'm in a new spot to just go out and explore.
Hmm.
I also do. I mean, I kind of like a half introvert, half extrovert. Yeah, if I know I'm doing a lot of extroverted things, I just need time to like mentally prepare, and I'm totally happy to do a bunch of like exciting extra. Like I find that very enjoyable, but I can't be surprised. I need to like know that I'm doing extroverted things, and then I can do them. So I've done a lot of traveling with my friend Nikki, and she's very extroverted, and I love traveling with Nikki. Um, but like when I'm traveling with Nikki, she's more extroverted, and so I just have to. I know that like the trip that I'm doing is a more extroverted, energy intensive trip. So
Yeah.
I just need to have more time booked after the trip so that I can do my like introversion cool down before I
That's funny.
integrate back into society.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, it's kind of complicated actually because
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm both. I'm very much both. It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of get it because I mean, I wouldn't say I love to travel because I don't, but if there's a
That's fair.
plan, if there's a plan of traveling, I'm all
Yeah.
about it if I can prepare for it. But if I'm with someone who is going to change the plan constantly, I'm going to get really stressed out. Like
That's
if
fair.
someone says, "Hey man, we still have an hour. Let's go check out this other thing." I need this hour to relax. I can't be on the go all
Yeah.
day every day, you know? It's I I say that I'm sure I could do it, but my tendency is to do something new and then have some kind of cool down, like you said.
Yep. Yeah, I get that. And I think it's important to know like what you like doing and what you don't. So there's no point in trying to do something that you know you're not going to like doing anyway, because, well, it's just a waste of your time, really.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about is, so you are doing a lot of hand drawing, and I've seen your stories on Instagram of different postures of people, and I think it's cool. My mom's an artist too,
Oh,
not
cool.
so much these days, but she has this book of drawings from when she was in her early 20s. I think she took a course.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, is that another, hey, this is something I want to try, or is this a long term thing you've been working on?
So it's really interesting, actually. I loved drawing when I was little, like in elementary school. And then in high school, I basically did no visual art stuff because I was very much focused on like science and math, and there wasn't really a lot of time. And there's so many extracurricular activities, there was really no time to just sit and draw. And then it's kind of like university and work kind of took up a big chunk of my life during that period. And I didn't really have time to pursue things other than work. um, so what happened was when I used to work at EY in accounting, and we worked really long hours, and it was very tiring. And I got to the point where I couldn't turn my brain off to go to sleep. Like,
Yeah.
I just kept thinking about all the things that I needed to do at work the next day because there was no end. And so I started drawing as a way to focus my brain on something else. And it really worked. Like, I would just pick up a pen, and I kind of followed this site that was for beginner drawers, like just drawing lines and circles and figuring out how to do perspective. And I found that like it engaged so much of my brain in a different way than work did, that it helped me just get so tired that I would draw for like 30 minutes and then I would fall asleep, and then I would have like the best sleep ever. And I was like, oh my God, this is like art therapy. This is life changing. So that's how I started. And then it just kind of has kept evolving since then. So there's so many resources online. So I just keep kind of looking at what the next thing is to learn. And right now, well, I just kind of finished my phase, if you will, on figure drawing, because I was really interested in being able to capture the human body and like movement of the human body, because it's really hard like to be able to draw proportions realist. And I'm definitely not the best at it, but I've learned and grown a lot since I first started, which is great. And now I'm moving more into trying out like digital art. So I bought a tablet, and a whole other thing. There's so many things to learn with digital art, and Photoshop. So now it's just something fun to do. I don't need help falling asleep anymore, but I do enjoy just doing art.
Hmm. Yeah, I saw your whatever you call it, digital portrait of that woman from the Queen's Gambit.
Yes, Anya Taylor-Joy. Yep, that
So
was yeah, that was I was really happy with how that one turned out. It took a long time to do it. I have a membership to Skillshare, which is a platform. I don't know if you're familiar, but yeah. So there's a lot of art courses on there, and I watched a lot on digital portraiture, and I was like, I'm going to try and apply all of these things that I learned on Skillshare to this picture of Anya Taylor-Joy, and it took a really long time, but I was very happy with how it turned out.
yeah, I mean, just looking at it, because I don't do that. and you scroll through Instagram or you're on the internet surfing, you can just scroll through hundreds of creative portraits that people make. So for me, it was cool to see because I finally knew someone who did that, and then I figured, well, I mean, it doesn't look that hard, but the thing is, I've learned that whenever I think something doesn't look that hard, it's probably really hard and it probably
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. So that's why, I'm just impressed that people are willing to spend so much time to do that,
Mhm.
so that the end result is like, oh yeah, that's cool, but you don't realize it. I don't know, I don't think I'm explaining it properly, but
No, I completely get what you're saying. It's very humbling because I will be the first to admit that I am quite judgmental, and I remember looking at other people's art and saying, I could fucking do that. And now I know I can't. Like, or I could if I tried very, very hard and dedicated so many hours to this. And it's very humbling to kind of take a step back and understand what actually goes into creating something artistic and beautiful, and like putting your passion into it. It is a lot of work. And um, I feel like I've grown in that sense because I used to look at things and think, oh, that's nothing. And
yeah.
even something so simple as being able to draw a perfectly round circle freehand is very difficult. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm impressed that, well, it's not, what am I trying to say? It's cool that you started drawing as a means to, you know, kind of take yourself away from what you were doing,
Hmm.
being busy at work and having a high workload. So I think there's something to that when you start doing something that that's in and of itself, like, it's not necessarily a means to an end, it's just something that's necessary in your life.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's cool. I don't really have that, so I guess running is kind of
Mhm.
that thing, but it's just, yeah, I think that's a necessary component for someone to be excelling at something, when you just do the thing for itself.
Yeah. What's really helped me is I think for most of my life, I've always been goal oriented, and I've always been doing things to achieve something with like the end in mind. And it's only now in my life that I feel like I can just do things to kind of have fun. And I don't have an idea of what the end goal is. Like for drawing, I'm just drawing and learning things. And, maybe next week I want to learn how to draw clothing. I haven't been able to do that yet because drawing clothing is really difficult, but I don't have like that end goal. And I find that is really great, mostly for my mental health, because I think having too many goals is not very helpful when, you know, just in general. I think it's good to have goals, but like it's not good to have too many goals. So COVID has been good in the sense that it forces everybody to slow down and just kind of like do things that you want to do just for the sake of doing them.
See, I need some of that because my solution to having too many goals is just to have more goals, so that if you have so many goals, like, you're so busy trying to do them all,
Hmm.
it's just like I mean, I don't know, I get a thrill out of trying to do as many things as possible.
Sure.
So I really struggle finding something to do just for the sake of it.
Yep.
uh with that being said, the best thing for me is find uh what do you call it, like some grass somewhere, sit down and just stare at stuff. But
Hmm.
since I'm doing that on my front lawn, I don't want people to think I'm weird, so I usually just play some music.
Yeah.
Then if someone looks at me, they'll be like, oh yeah, I mean, he's just listening to music. But really, it's just there so that I don't feel self-conscious about just sitting on the grass.
Yeah. I would say it take like I wasn't always like this. I really very much like yourself was just goals. That's all for a really long time. I basically had like what I call my quarter life crisis when I decided to quit EY. I basically had the midlife crisis that people normally have during their midlife at like 26 because all I did was work, and that's pretty much all I
Mhm.
did. And it was very stressful. It wasn't very good for my mental health. And that was kind of like the tipping point where I was like, I need to like reevaluate what I'm doing because life isn't just about work. And then I had to think about what would make me happy. And I had no idea.
Mhm.
So I basically had to figure out like what is a hobby? Like how do I find one?
That's funny.
How do I go about doing things for fun? Like I needed to learn that
Mhm.
because I had really not done that before. So I would say like it's not easy to just like pick something up and go with it. It takes a certain amount of like work and thinking, and maybe you try something and it's not for you, and then you try maybe 10 things and those still aren't for you, but you'll find something eventually.
It's funny that you uh, mentioned that you had your quarter life crisis at 26. I've told my family that I think I'm having my quarter life crisis, or friends, and they just laugh it off. They're like, "Yeah, yeah, that's funny. Quarter life crisis. It's like midlife crisis." And I too uh, quit my job a month and a half before my 26th birthday, and I decided at the time when I had quit. At the time when I quit, I decided, I'll just give myself a year, just no plans, nothing, just chill out, see what happens.
Hmm.
Because I had starting from basically high school until the end of university, which is around 9 years, and then right after that, working for 2.5 years. It was
Yep.
just like you said, you just work, you work, and so on. And then after you work for a while, you're just like, oh, well, I'm here. This
Yeah.
is what I was working for. What now?
Yes.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, I quit my job. I spent a year basically not doing much, watching a lot of movies and TV shows.
Hmm.
And it turns out I'm still doing the same thing because I think I just like doing stuff that's hard because I I just have a tendency to try to overload myself if I have
Yeah.
too much free time.
Right.
And then when you're actually working, you can dial that back, as outside of work, because work is very, in engineering, the jobs that I've done, it's like I don't know a whole lot, so I'm always having to learn something, and it's very mentally intensive.
Right.
So I think it's cool. We've had the same kind of parallel, you know,
Yeah.
to quarter life crisis
And I think we're not
people.
alone. Like I think I can think of so many people that are our age that are kind of in the same boat where, we've kind of been told you go to school, you get a job, and then you're set. And it's like
Yeah.
there's certainly more to life than just that. And it's hard to navigate that because we kind of live in a society where there's certain expectations, but I don't really think everybody is happy with how all of that plays out. And it's tough to navigate for sure.
Yeah, I have one other friend who kind of did the same thing. He did engineering, then switched to what's it called, like data science. So yeah, I think it's pretty common, like you say. And my takeaway is I don't really have a passion for anything. I mean, I like doing a lot of stuff, but I only know one way to make money, and that's doing engineering stuff, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that, and see where that ends up. Maybe figure out how to make money on my own in some way.
I mean, I think like the great thing is that everybody's path is different, and
Yeah.
there's no rule book on what you need to do. And it's like in the grand scheme of things, what's the average age? Like if you live to be 90, I don't know if that's like, I don't know how old people live to be. Like we are still like so young into our lives that like
Sure.
the idea that like, oh, by this age you need to have everything figured out. Like who decided that? That doesn't make any sense. Like just do whatever you want and you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah, I think my theory is that so usually people who tell you that are your parents or teachers or other important adults in your life.
Mm,
And the thing is, if you question some of them, they will not have followed the same path that they're recommending
yes.
because they followed that path, like because they had a lot of zigzags.
Yep.
They're like, well, don't do this because I did it. It was hard. Just do this. But
Right.
I think there's like just having those zigzags. That's really what builds your character. Like for me,
I agree.
it was really tough to decide is I'm gonna quit my job because you
For sure.
never
That's a hard
think about
decision
that.
to make.
If you're always planning for a job and working towards getting that job, you're never planning to quit that job, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I don't know what else to say. I think it was I don't regret it. I'll say that.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's when you know that you made the right decision. Like I don't regret quitting my job. It was very hard to do that for sure. I didn't really know what was going to happen after I did that. And there's just always uncertainty. Like you
Mhm.
can't predict the future. You can only make decisions with the information that you have at the time.
Right.
And then you just keep going through life making more and more decisions. And you know that the decisions you're making are the right ones because you wouldn't make them if they weren't, right? It's kind of hard to like
Hmm.
articulate.
Yeah, it's the difference between um like there's reckless at one end of the spectrum, and then there's really calculated,
Mhm.
but you're going to be somewhere in the middle,
Yep.
and you can't be afraid to make a decision because of a lack of information,
Yes.
because making decisions is not like solving problems in functions class where they give you all the variables and you just have to plug stuff in.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
never works like that, which is annoying because I like learning stuff and that's how they teach you, and then you get to a job and it's like, well, what do I do? um,
Yeah. There's so much ambiguity. You have to like make a decision and you just have to make assumptions. And it's like,
yeah.
well,
Exactly.
it's reasonable to assume this. And it is. If you can prove that it's reasonable, then whatever you decide is a reasonable thing to do. You're not going to make an
Well,
unreasonable decision.
I know that's such a weird word when people say things are reasonable or not. I just tune out. I'm like, okay, you made the decision. Let's just go with that. Is it reasonable or not? I don't care.
Yeah, that's so funny because when I worked in audit at EY, there's this concept called reasonable assurance. And so when you work in audit, you don't ever like the language that we use as auditors is never certain. Like we're never
Yeah.
certain about anything. We have reasonable assurance about everything. Um, and just that concept of like what is reasonable is just it's actually such an accounting concept. It's kind of crazy, but I kind of like use that in my day-to-day life. Like, what is reasonable? And then you can just make up your own rules for what you think is reasonable. And as long as you believe that, that's fine.
Man, it's so funny that you say that. Reasonable assurance is sounds like uh, a synonym for with a high degree of confidence,
Yes.
or in engineering designs, you say, this current is negligible. It's like, let's just ignore it. It's not important. Is
Yeah.
this design is within tolerance? It's like, well, yeah, it's not great, but it's not terrible. I think it's good enough.
Yep. That's exactly it. I feel like every field has their own equivalent.
That's what I'm learning as I'm getting older. Like you learn that whenever someone says something with like so much confidence, then they're sure exactly what they're saying. I'm just thinking, is it really? Are you sure? And if you are sure, does that mean you don't know that there could be a tolerance on there? You know? So
Yep.
anyway, we're getting into the weeds of reasonable assurance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just kind of goes with what you're saying about the way people speak. Like I went to the Ivy Business School, and pretty much everybody that comes out of that school speaks with such confidence on any subject.
Yeah.
And they might not be a subject matter expert. And so it is actually, it's kind of like a skill to be able to speak in such a way that is persuasive when you really don't know what you're talking about. And in business especially, you see that a lot. And it's like, it's also a skill to be able to try and like figure out who really knows what they're talking about versus
Yeah.
who is like trying to appear like they know what they're talking about. There's a lot of navigating that in the world, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting thing about working at a company. If you're working with a group of people, whether it's a team of 5 or 20, it's like I personally don't understand when people just know they're so sure about what they're doing.
Hmm.
I just go with it because that person's usually the manager, and you know, just like,
Yeah,
well, I mean, you can be sure or unsure, but you're taking credit or the fall if anything goes wrong. But
fair
when
enough.
someone asks me to make those decisions, I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like, I think we should do this, but is it good? I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing I know.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just interesting. I think it takes a lifetime to navigate that, and even the most senior people aren't going to have a batting average that's 100%.
No. I mean, people are going to make mistakes. And so I think it's just that ability to accept, you know what? I'm probably going to make a mistake or two or 10 at some point, and then just be okay with it.
Yeah, it's interesting though. If you're giving a talk in a audience of thousands,
Hmm.
you need that confidence in how you speak.
Yes, for
But it's
sure.
different when you're one-on-one. Like this, I'm not trying to be confident in speaking. I mean, we
Hmm.
kind of know each other, so it's like there's some leeway to express ideas or like go back on what you say, things like that.
Sure.
But I mean, I haven't really spoken to huge audiences very often, but I usually just stick to the script because if you freestyle in front of an audience or make a joke and then it doesn't work, oh man, it feels so bad. I remember one time I was running for some student council position, I think grade rep at Central,
Hmm.
and I wrote my speech and I thought I had a great joke. In hindsight, it's not even funny. It was it was like a very serious speech, and then I just threw in something like it was something along the lines of, yeah, I'll listen to what you have to say, even if it's through interpretive dance. And I thought that was funny. And then I said that and I just looked up, it's just like silence.
Oh, that sucks.
And I
That's a
just looked down and finished my speech. It was, in hindsight, it's hilarious.
yeah, it is really funny in hindsight. Because
Because yeah,
it's
yeah.
nerve wracking. Like you're on the spot, and um, I think everybody will get nervous to some degree when they have to speak to a large group of people because nobody wants to like have their speech fall flat. Like everybody wants to do a good job, and you just don't know how things are going to shake out, and it's nerve wracking for sure. But I think having the courage to do it and see it through is really important. So I think it's great that you still did it because you probably learned something. And
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have a couple of ongoing challenges to improve my speaking in general. most of the time when I'm talking to people, I use the word like so often,
Yeah.
or a lot of filler words. My most common filler words are like, I mean, well, So yeah, my way of doing it is this month, one of my challenges is to write for 15 minutes a day, every day, and have a timer, turn it on, start writing, and then turn it off. Initially, it was meant to write jokes because one day I would like to try, uh, a walk on stand up set. What is it called? Open mic.
Oh, that's amazing. That's such a great idea.
It is. But you know what I've learned from writing every day for 14 days? I
What?
am not funny at all.
Oh, I think you are funny. I think it just takes practice to be able to write. I mean, I'm not a comedian by any means, but I think anybody could be. You just have to practice. At least that's what I've heard. I've never done
Yeah.
it. I don't know. I'm just giving advice based on absolutely nothing.
Because I've just learned there's just something different about uh, getting a laugh in a conversation versus like telling jokes.
Yeah.
I don't know how to tell a joke, It's so
Yeah.
I'm learning how to do that.
Hey, have you ever thought about joining something like Toastmasters?
I thought about it and I looked into it when I was studying engineering in my bachelor's, but then I went through their rules. I was like, I don't like there's too many rules here. Have you
Mm,
done it?
I did briefly. It wasn't too much my thing. I did it because I think I did it for a couple of months just to see what it was. I think what is really good about Toastmasters is I agree. I didn't really like the rules, and they're very formal and they
Yeah.
take minutes and stuff. And I'm like, I don't need to be a part of this. Um, but it really forces you to actually get up in front of a group of very supportive people and just deliver speeches. And they could be funny speeches, they could be serious speeches, it could be like a academic presentation, it could be really like whatever you want. But the idea of getting up and practicing in front of actual people who aren't like your friends and family, but who are very supportive and will give you constructive feedback is really good. And so I kind of wish that there was something like that just for me, but like that you didn't have to like go through like the whole rigmarole of like signing up and like taking notes and doing all this stuff.
There is. It's Have you done improv comedy?
Oh, that scares me. I don't think I can do improv.
No. Trust. I did 2 courses. And so I was working in Perth, Ontario, which is an hour west of Ottawa. So the
Mm-hmm.
classes were in Ottawa, and I'd had to drive an hour just to go to the class. But it's a very supportive group because when you go in, there's always an introductory class. And the first thing they teach you is the yes and rule, which maybe you've heard of it before. Basically, if you're 2 people on stage and you're doing some improv comedy, whatever the other person says, whether you think it's funny or not, you just have to add on to it.
Right.
It's like you're on stage and one person's maybe like does this and they said, oh, then the next person would say, wow, that juice is really terrible, isn't it? And you'd be like, yeah, it's not even juice, man, it's rotten milk. And then you just kind of go back and forth.
Right.
Basically, like, whose line is it anyway? But not as good because you're just a beginner. Um, so the great thing about that is the group's really supportive, and I really enjoyed that. And I'm sad that I didn't keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
I decided not to because I only went to half the classes for each course, and it wasn't worth the money because it was just so far.
Right.
But if you're willing to give it a shot, I would take an intro course and see how you feel. And it's fun.
That's really interesting. The idea, I've always shied away from the idea of like improv like that. And I should probably maybe think about doing that too, because it's something that I feel uncomfortable with. Because the idea of not being able to plan for what's coming next is like a a big fear of mine. Like I like to know things in advance and like mentally prepare and then I'm good. But the yes and like that kind of an exercise like that is terrifying for me because
Mm.
you can't predict what the next person's going to say. You
Yeah.
can't like plan 4 steps ahead for what's coming up.
Yeah. I really like it. It's for me, it's permission to just be a kid. Like when you're really young
Yeah.
and you're playing with other kids, they're not usually judgmental. I mean, there's always that one kid that's like, that's not funny. I don't
Yeah.
want to play this game.
Right.
But I remember like most of the time it was, or you even see it with really young kids, they just kind of talk to each other and it's they're basically doing improv. So it's just
Yeah.
permission to do that. So
That's a great way of
yeah,
thinking about it. I love that.
yeah. So yeah, that was fun. I think I'll get back into it whenever I can. Uh, so this okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, so you started your own Fiverr thing where you uh, review and critique resumes.
Yes.
How is that going?
Um, really, it's very interesting. So I kind of signed up for Fiverr on a whim. I got a really well targeted ad. All of my ads are very well targeted. And so um, I was kind of like browsing their site and seeing what it is. And it's basically a site that connects freelancers with people that need freelance services. And I had this idea because I am very often helping family members and friends with resumes and cover letters. And when I was at Ivy, we did like a deep dive in resumes and cover letters, and I took it pretty seriously. Like I still have like my notes from school, and it's kind of like writing a good resume is just a skill and being able to like take something simple and then frame it in a way that you know whoever's looking at it wants to see it, if that makes
Mhm,
sense. It's just a
mhm.
framing exercise. Anybody can get any job. It's just how you've like described what you've done because everybody has like relevant skills. So, yeah, I just like set up my gig page
Mhm.
and I mean, I get like orders rolling in about once a week and as it's been going, I've been kind of noticing that I'm gaining certain skills too. Like I have an approach now to handle other people's resumes and cover letters. I'm faster at doing them. I think I'm better at doing them. Like it's really interesting to see this evolve. And I've only done a handful so far because
Mhm.
I'm almost at the point where Fiverr has this system where there's like a tier level of sellers. And I'm almost, right now, I'm a no level seller. So I'm like at the bottom, but I'm almost at the point where I can be a level 1 seller, which basically just means that you're like a little bit more legit than a no level seller. That's really all it means. But I'm super excited because I'm almost at the threshold for like my metrics that I'm a level 1 seller. But it's been really super interesting. It's just like, it's kind of like a side thing, just earns me a little bit of extra income. But what I mostly like about it is sort of how I'm seeing my own skills kind of develop as I'm like helping other people. And
Mhm.
it's also super cool to see what everybody else is doing out there. Like there's so many unique experiences and people in niche areas doing crazy awesome things. It's super interesting.
Yeah, so I am actively applying for jobs and I'm very cynical about the whole application process and cover letters
You
and
should be.
resumes.
You should be because it's literally, I might regret saying this. Recipes and cover letters are
Are
just
you
a,
sure you want to say it?
oh yeah, yeah, it's fine. It's just a
Okay.
hoop jumping exercise.
Okay, okay.
You're just jumping through hoops. And so that's why a lot of people are cynical. I'm cynical about it too, because like I said before, it's a framing exercise. So it's like, you know, what's a good example?
I,
Um,
I I will I can I have an example in mind which
sure.
may relate. So I know that in some cases, at universities, professors will post a job online after they've already decided to hire someone, and they just
Oh,
need that student to apply to that job.
right.
I don't know for a fact that's true, but that's what I've heard. Is that a good example?
So that's not what I was going for, but you are correct in that sometimes um, jobs are posted with somebody in mind,
Yeah.
and no matter how good your resume is, if you're not the person that they have in mind, you're not going to get the role. That does exist. What I'm thinking of is like, let's say, what's something you did in your job that you quit? Like just one task. Like give me a task that you did.
I inspected printed circuit boards.
Okay, so you inspected. What was it?
PCBs.
Okay, you've inspected something. It doesn't matter what you've inspected. The point is that you have the ability to look at something in a very detail oriented way and identify if there's something that doesn't make sense. That's basically what you did when
Mhm.
you were inspecting. So, any job that has something to do with being detail oriented or problem solving or looking at something with a creative mindset, you can use that example. You just got to frame it with different words. And that's what I mean by it, people can get a little bit cynical about the whole idea of resumes and cover letters because it's really the art or the act of applying for a job doesn't really it's testing for different skills that might not actually be part of like the job. Like you might be really good, a good fit for something, but if you don't have the skills to actually articulate what you've done in a way that like the recruiter is like intending to understand and read, you're not going to get the position. Somebody might get the position who's worse for the job than you are, but they're better at writing a resume. And
Yeah.
so that's where I think it's valid to be a bit cynical about that process because it's not a fair process. It's not a process that's actually designed to hire the best people for the role. And so that's where you get sometimes people get creative with hiring. Um, I've heard of things like doing group activities and like let's say an employer might just observe how you interact in a group setting because maybe your role is to work with groups all the time.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, that actually happened. I when I was in university, I applied to be a summer academic orientation leader, which is just um, dealing with like prospect university students in the summer, and you like tour them around campus and talk to their parents and stuff. So there was a lot of interaction, and part of that interview process was we were just like put in groups, and the people that were hiring like just watched us interact and do different activities. And then they selected people for like further interviews from that initial group, which is a great and creative way to like actually hire for a skill that you're looking for, as opposed to testing somebody's ability to write down words in a certain format to
Yeah.
prove that you can do the job.
Well, thank you again for chatting.
No problem.
Um,
Thanks for having me.